I will tell you, I've got delusions of grandeur that we will grow this brand and it will be the largest European motorcycle manufacturer
Nice.
in the US. So, we do have strong aspirations, and our parent company has already proven that they can do this type of stuff. And we've
Yep.
made the investments in not only the people and the factory and the products, so that I think that we can deliver that and become a very, very large contributor to the dealer.
Today on the podcast, we have an absolute rock star of the motorcycle industry. Steve Radt is not only the CEO of Norton USA, but he is also a dear friend of mine, and we were in 20 clubs together, so we have a lot of background. Speaking of background, though, we go through an entire history of Steve, how he started in the industry, how he's worked for manufacturers in power sports and in automotive, how he's owned and operated a dealership, doing all the stuff to run the store, and then how he ended up in this role of basically relaunching a brand, not just to the U.S. market, but his impact globally as well. I mean, it's a great story. It's some really incredible insights in how to really create a premium brand and get it properly placed in dealers all around the country. So I think you'd enjoy this episode. I really enjoyed recording it. So please share, subscribe. And then if you have any suggestions on people that should be on the show, or if you'd like to sponsor the show, reach out to dealerlab@onex.io. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Steve Radt from Norton. Actually, it's weird to say just from Norton because I know you from so many different things, and we've known each other for so long. So I really appreciate you being on the show. We do a bunch of creepy amount of research on people before you're on the program. So,
oh wow,
this is your arrest record. We're going to start with that's a joke.
Well, you can throw up my mugshot.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll be right here. Just look at it. It's the same shot, actually. This is your mugshot. No, but actually, I do want to mention the background. Your setup is gorgeous. Where are you? There's a lot of Nortons behind you. What's the deal?
So it's super interesting. So, I live in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is basically a bedroom community for New York City. And when I joined Norton, it was time to go through and let's figure out and let's embrace what's happened with the community with a company that's been around since 1898. And it turns out that NYC Norton is literally a half mile from the house in Jersey City, which is the next town over. And Kenny Cummins, who basically is NYC Norton. It's just this amazing guy, and we hit it off. And what he has here is it's unobtainium. So you're seeing an actual authentic Manx race bike from 1959. That was raced by a guy that I guess came in second in the GP championship at that time period.
Wow.
And so it's that is a completely legit bike right over my shoulder. And the reason it's so significant is obviously that Manx name has been kind of synonymous with Norton. And in fact, our new super bike that we launched back in November, and actually what's happening with our press launch right now in Spain, is the Manx R. So it's really kind of a great homage to be able to have that bike right there and be able to see it is just, it's a real honor. And I've been riding motorcycles since I was 9, and my first formal introduction to a motorcycle was a Norton Commando in 1977. Really? Yeah. So for me, as much as if you were to go and look at my background, I have strong ties to Ducati. My first kind of formal introduction to a motorcycle was Norton. And so this has kind of gone full circle. I mean, it's taken almost 50 years, but the kind of land here at Norton is, I guess, maybe a bit of serendipity. So pretty cool.
That is really cool. So Norton NYC is not a dealer. It's a restoration race shop, or what does it do?
100%. So Kenny actually races the product, but also he prepares a lot of the vintage bikes for the guys that are actually competent at racing vintage. That's kind of Kenny's thing. He does resto mods too. So he'll take a Commando that is kind of a ratted out one and just turn it into a beautiful piece. You'll know this from the tech side. He uses Moto Gadgets, so he completely rewires the bikes.
Yeah. Oh,
so you think about It's real pretty. So the wiring is a piece of work. All his machining is done. He does a lot of the stuff in-house.
That's
But
cool.
kind of hand shaping tools, no CNC, but he can also send that stuff out as well. So it's an interesting union of the past, but also using a combination of modern tech as well. So
Yeah.
I think he's kind of crossed the divide exceptionally well, and I think that's the
Yeah.
other reason why we hit it off so well is that this current iteration of Norton, we can't divorce ourselves from the past. And so, Kenny has that kind of unique combination of both thinking and keeping the vintage Norton alive,
Mhm.
but also understanding the progress of what motorcycling is and the new Norton is.
Yeah. And so Norton North America, I
Yeah.
mean, you are setting up Norton North America. You were like the
Yeah.
first hire and are just building the whole thing. And that's in New York, I assume, as well. Are you guys where are you in relation to this?
Sure, sure. So I was hired by Norton 14 months ago. So
Nice.
I started in March of 2025. So here we are, month 14. So yeah, I was employee number one for Norton USA. Of course, Norton USA didn't exist either. We had to do it. We're doing everything. So we had to
Yeah.
set up the LLC. We had to set up the LLC. We're doing the state licensing. We're doing homologation. We're renting a facility. We hiring all the staff. We're doing all the dealer setup, the dealer agreements. So anything that is related to having a wholly owned subsidiary is completely a task that's on our U.S. team shoulders. So for much of that, it was just me, and so that was fun, interesting, and if we go into my history, I have an interesting arc which arguably
Yes.
has made me almost uniquely qualified to come into
Yeah.
this position. So it's really interesting to take a historic story brand from 1898 that has had absence from the US market for many years and had the opportunity to bring it back to the marketplace and kind of to its prior glory.
Yeah.
You think about this brand and the story I always tell, like if you were to go through the 50s and 60s, Norton was the preeminent motorcycle manufacturer and arguably the most technically savvy motorcycle company. And so, when we think about the resurgence of Norton, I think of it more of akin to going back where the company was in the 50s and 60s, as opposed to looking in the rearview mirror as to what it's done for the last 3 decades. Because it's kind of bopped along. The marquee never completely went away, but really this is much more akin to restoring it to its prior glory, if you will. And we'll talk about the arc of how the current ownership has gotten to where it is
Yeah.
and where we are.
Yeah, I want to get there for sure. And
Yeah.
so to bring it back to just setting up Norton North America, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are literally next door to this place now, Norton, New York City. Is that right? Or NYC?
So that's our hope. Our
Oh,
hope is
cool.
that
Yeah, yeah.
our hope is that we can set up here. Anybody
That's
that's
cool.
done anything in the motorcycle space knows that setting up an office for a company, quite simple.
Yeah, yeah,
Setting up an office where you can actually have motorcycles contained within is much more difficult, especially as you get into urban locations. So,
yeah,
this is a rare opportunity to have a location where not only can we have an office, but we can have an on-site service training facility, a sample
yeah,
dealership, and house our press bikes. And so we can bring people in to an environment that isn't just an office. I mean, motorcycling is an enthusiast sport,
Mhm.
and many of all the clients, but all the dealers for that are passionate about it. And so the idea of just going to an office, it
Yeah,
it's interesting. Many manufacturers have that, but
yeah,
I think the opportunity to
yeah,
actually have the intimacy with the motorcycles and really kind of put our money where our mouth is and show this is how we like our brand represented. And
yeah.
not only that, we've built it out to show you exactly what it is, I think is important.
And to show them what it is in not just a cool facility and not just next to a very cool, like historically relevant brand and company next to you, but to do it in Manhattan is also such a unique thing to you understanding
Yeah.
the intricacies of that.
Yeah, but to correct you, so we're actually in Jersey City. Now, Jersey
Oh,
City
well
is
then,
I was about
literally,
to say,
yeah,
what are you talking about?
over.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not gonna. we're canceling the podcast now.
Yes. No. So to give you reference, I mean, how close we are to Manhattan, I could literally walk out the door to this building. I could walk 75 feet down to the left, make a left, and walk straight into the Holland Tunnel.
Okay. So
yeah.
Yeah, you're close.
So during COVID, when I would ride to the dealership, I would take this route, and I would be in Manhattan from my house in 4 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
So
yeah.
just
So
give you an idea.
You are incredibly close. Okay. So I was hopefully using that as a transition to let's get into your very unique background.
Sure.
So I want to hit on Ducati Manhattan, but before we get to that, like you started in engineering, is that right? Did you study engineering?
Yeah. So I went to school. So my father was an engineer. He was aerospace and automotive engineer, and quite handy. So like as a child, I always say like I rebuilt a Tecumseh tractor motor at 9. Yeah, my first mini bike at that time. And so I was kind of like learned how to tinker at a young age, kind of followed my father's footsteps when I went to college and I studied mechanical engineering. And that's kind of the path that I would take. So I graduated a degree in engineering, and I always tell the story that in 1993, Ducati debuted the Supermoto, which was just this, incredibly beautiful, lightweight, 275-pound single cylinder motorcycle that just really just sparked my curiosity with both being an engineer and bringing it to motorcycling. And then that was capped off in 94 with the debut of the 916. And when that happened, I was like, I need to work at this company. I need to go there.
Really?
So yeah. Literally. So it's funny. I literally typed out a letter and mailed it to what was at that point Cagiva North America to apply for a job at the company. And then I got an interview, and next thing you know, I get hired.
What were you applying for? What was the role you were looking to do?
Any role I could get.
Just hire me. I just want to be there.
And I said, eventually I'll work in the U.S., but I want to go to Italy and be an engineer. And that was kind of the thought of what I would do. So long story short, I get hired there, and this is Cagiva. So this is before it really became standalone Ducati, and this is before American venture capital company came in and where it ended up now with its home in the Volkswagen group. So I tell the story. I'm newly minted. I have a degree in mechanical engineering. I can computer program. I'm pretty adept at using computers in general. And I get the Cagiva, and I get issued a typewriter. So
no way.
What? Yeah. So I want to give you an understanding of like, yeah. Whoa. So I get a typewriter. Now I have a computer at home. So I'm doing I'm booking out travel. I'm ordering office supplies, and I was also responsible for selling motorcycles to South and Central America. So like I was doing like all these different things. When I worked, and I processed about 85% of all the warranty claims. So at that time, you would have
how it's like you're booking travel and handling expenses. Also, you're responsible for selling units to other countries.
What a crazy.
Yeah. It's a crazy story, but like, you learn a lot when you're wearing a lot of hats, especially, when you're young. So I would process about 85% of the warranty claims. And at that time they would come in as a triplicate form, and the dealer would have to mail in the causal part, and inside the box would be this triplicate warranty form. And so I would get it, you would receive it, you'd open up the box and take out the warranty claim, you put it aside, you look at the part and be like, well, yeah, that's broken. And then put it to the side. And then you would have this pile of warranty claims, and then you would go through and I could check out most of them, because most of them, like most failures in a warranty are known issues. Yeah. So go through, everything's there, the labor code's there, everything there, approve it, put it there. And then the 15% I would leave for the service manager, and that would be his job to go through. So I reduced his workload tremendously because he only had to do the kind of heavy lift ones, and I did most of it. So we didn't even have a flat rate manual. So like at night, I wrote Ducati's flat rate manual on my computer, and then and then made it for them, and then we brought it in. And so
how'd you come up with the flat rate times?
Well, because we knew what the times were. It wasn't that they weren't there, but it wasn't.
Like you knew it in your head? Like
No. We of course we had this kind of accurately figured out. I mean, Ducati, it was
yeah,
still the
okay.
90s. So, so
Yeah,
they,
you have a
we
typewriter.
had it. Yeah, exactly. So, but they didn't have like a formalized,
Okay.
labor code manual. So, I made it in Excel and it formatted it with nice and did that. So I did that for like almost a year. And I was like, these guys aren't sending me to Italy to be an engineer. This isn't happening. This isn't happening. So I left and I became an engineer, but I kept in touch with the people at Ducati. And so when TPG came in, the Tech Pacific Group, a large venture capital company, came in, I kept in touch with them, and I started there, and I started working as a consultant again. And I was working like parts obsolescence because they didn't do anything with it. They had no systems, no methods. So I came in, I was working on parts obsolescence. Then lo and behold, like they were doing their first national dealer meeting in Las Vegas. And this is now they're using this newfangled program called PowerPoint. Nobody in the organization, nobody knew in the organization knew how to use PowerPoint. So I'm like, I was like, I just taught myself PowerPoint very quickly. And next thing you know, they fly me to Las Vegas and I'm the guy with a laptop working on the PowerPoint presentation. I'm the only one in the organization that can do it. So then I'm working away, and they're like, wow, this guy's pretty good. And so like I get offered a job then, and then next thing you know, I'm there and I'm working for the number 2, the commercial director, who was from Italy, who came over to the US to run it. So now I'm like his number 2. So now I'm getting exposure to production planning and product planning and market analysis and all this stuff. So
how big was the gap between the Cagiva days?
Like
and
4 years, about 4 years.
Okay.
Is what
and they
it
had
was.
come pretty far. Like they weren't using typewriters anymore.
No. Everybody had a PC. It was
All
So
right.
that part changed up on it. So, but when I was an engineer, I did semi-empirical modeling for tire data for the auto industry. So you think about using both testing data and modeling, and you combine the two, and that's semi-empirical modeling, and then you bring it over the motorcycle world, and it looked like ridiculously simplistic when you come over. Yeah. So like, coming over and doing market analysis and production planning and everything else, like and being very passionate and very knowledgeable on motorcycling, you put the two together, and I feel like, my learning curve was almost instant to go through. So in that time period, I did most of the production planning and the product planning and the market analysis and dealer objectives and programs. And I was a rep. I did logistics. So in a 10-year period.
Different times? Were these like
Yeah. This is so I had a 10-year arc, almost 11-year arc at Ducati.
Nice.
And in that time period, I just did a myriad of different jobs while I was there, from being a rep to doing, budgeting and product planning and production planning and market analysis. So, I brought in the whole process of bringing in a company like Urban Science, which is much more automotive focused. And I brought them over to Ducati so that we had that hygiene and going through the market analysis of that. So, it was an amazing run. And I always say, like, I think I worked for 4 different global CEOs, 5 managing directors for the US, 5 CFOs, 4 heads of marketing were there. So I always say, like, so in that 10, 11 year period, it was like 40 years. Yeah. It's true. I mean, even because the company used to be headquartered in New Jersey, and then like halfway through it relocated to California, and only 3 people stayed with the company. It was me, that one guy had a service who I worked with back when it was Cagiva.
Wow,
and then one guy in parts. So it was like the 3 of us were the only legacy people in the company.
Isn't it true? Like the fixed ops guys just keep sticking around. You just keep abusing them, and they don't leave. Like that.
Yep. They never say uncle.
They never do. Okay, gonna move you across the country.
I guess. Yeah. So I stayed there, and after they moved to California, they hired a CEO. He lasted 3 months after they moved the company there, and they let him go. So now they changed the whole staff. They hired the CEO. The global CEO got ousted. So I was like, okay, this is time to go do something else. And that was when I actually tendered my resignation, and that's when Michael Locke came in. And so Michael came in, and basically he was like, I understand you're pretty valuable, go on vacation, and when you come back, we'll talk. And I came back, and they were like, we're going to open an office in New Jersey.
Resignation, but I'm not going to take
it. So then I opened an office in New Jersey, And it was those same, the same three of us. So for 5 years, I did that in New Jersey. But realistically, and to Michael's credit, we had very transparent conversation and relationship. He was like, at some point you need to be here at headquarters. And, we just weren't prepared to move to California. And it was kind of time. It was a good run to
this was to move
there. So
back to California again?
So I never moved from New Jersey. So, basically, so 5 years I ran this office in New Jersey, and it's kind of like, hey, you need to move to California to continue at this level, which was a fair ask, but it wasn't something we were prepared to do. And so I was like, okay, well then, and I gave 5 months notice, and I said, we'll go through. This was a legitimate ask, and it was something that we weren't willing to do, but I didn't want to see Ducati be anything else but have a good transition. So then it was time to do something else. And then next thing you know, I'm running a startup. It's 2008.
What startup? What were you doing?
It was called Hybrid Dynamics. And it's funny. It was a SPAC before anybody knew what a SPAC was. So it was, this fully compliant, legally trading company. And it was basically owned by, one guy was a CPA, one guy was an attorney. And it literally was like way ahead of the curve. And we kind of got rolled into this SPAC, and we were trying to raise money. But 2008, you guys are young, but 2008 was a rough financial period to try and raise money. So that didn't exactly work. But I always say, you learn more from your failures than you do your success. And so that was, again, just an amazing experience to kind of helm the company for a short period of time. And then basically, lo and behold, Ducati New York had a transition. There was no general manager there. And so they were looking for somebody to helm the store.
How'd you know about that? How'd that come up?
Oh, I mean, my relationships with Ducati has remained tight. So you know this industry. There's no secrets in the motorcycle business. So I was extremely apprehensive about going to take over the helm at Ducati New York. Well, at that point it was Corsa Motorsports, so it was KTM, Ducati, and Triumph at the time. But I threw out a number, and the owner said okay, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll take this over. And
how long?
Lo and behold,
what was the plan?
What
how
time
long were you to do it?
This is no idea. That's.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I did. Yeah, we didn't. I didn't have an idea as to what it would be. I just was going to come in. The idea was to be a turnaround agent for the dealership.
Well, we did. Yeah, same.
Yeah, and so this is in 2000. This is 2009, and lo and behold, I get there, and I'm like, wow, this place is bankrupt, and it had a debt situation where we weren't going to be able to sell ourselves out, and so it came down to three separate decisions: one, either invest in the business; two, close the business; three, sell the business. So I was like, okay, sell the business. So then I'm trying to sell the dealership for a year.
That loses money.
With a fixed time period on the lease, which decrements a day every single day. That lease gets shorter, so it was a little bit of a challenge. So lo and behold, after a year, shockingly, nobody, we couldn't consummate the deal. So finally, I'm like, I'm an idiot. I'll buy it. So
this is a terrible deal. Nobody's gonna do it. I guess
I guess I'll do it. So I go back, and we go back and forth for about 8 or 9 months, and we never can consummate the deal. So finally, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It's coming to the point where it becomes unsafe, and you really need to think about your clients and the reliability of the service that you can provide. And I felt that we were getting to the point where this could be. I perceived that this could be dangerous for us to continue. So I just. It's very important. You need to remember, I mean, motorcycling are fun, but you have to remember the responsibility that we carry when you're selling and servicing motorcycles. And you need to take pride in your work, but you also need to remember the responsibility that you carry for that client. And so
many similarities. What we did with coming in here, there was talk about dangerous.
Same. I mean, we had to let guys go because they were
not doing things they shouldn't be doing while
illegal
working.
Stuff on lunch breaks. That's all I could say.
It was nuts, and who knows how long it was going on, until we got here. It's like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So
No,
same thing. You're just like, this is unrealistic.
exactly like this is something that is just, it's not sustainable to do this. And as I said, so basically kind of closed the store, but I had a relationship with both the manufacturers and the landlord. And I said, listen,
Wow. So it shuttered. It
yeah,
was shut down.
it is. Yeah. Yeah. Nobody knows this, but yes, it was kind of shuttered. And then in the
Yeah.
background, I was working away at basically resurrecting the dealership. And it took me about 5 months to get the lease. And then I got in there, and it took me 2 months to build it out. And I walked into like a black box. And so, built out the store mostly myself, and
Really?
and got it I got it resurrected. Had to find, new staff because most of my staff had moved on. Of course. And so, Marcos. Marcos was my right hand man, and you know him quite well. So Marcos
Yeah.
came back with me, and he was kind of
Awesome.
my,
So he was there before.
he was there before. Yep.
Nice.
Yep. So, he was my anchor there. And so basically at that point is when it picked up, and it became what I call Mototainment, Ducati Triumph New York. And, I've told the story about Mototainment. I always look at this as every client has amount of entertainment dollars that they make available, and they can do it anything they want. They can do it for vacationing. They can do it for video games. They can do it for illegitimate things, but I always say, like, what we want them to do is spend their entertainment dollars on motorcycles and motorcycle related product.
Agreed.
Therefore,
Absolutely.
it's Mototainment. So that was kind of the parent company, and we were Ducati and Triumph, and basically just concentrated on those core two brands. And so we did that for a while, and we were very successful. We were number one Triumph dealer one time, I think 2016. And I think over the course of the 12 years I was there, we were number one Ducati dealer, I think like 6 times in North America. So,
Nice.
From a volume standpoint, for Ducati, I don't think we ever dropped out of the top 3.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, I was like, that was more out of desperation. Like, we needed to sell that many units to keep the lights on.
Yeah. Just those two brands,
more than just a competitive spirit, if you will.
Yeah, and that's where we met.
So,
you were in our 20 club, but I think I remember you mentioning you had a budget for parking tickets because you had to keep bikes on the like in front of the dealership, and you would just get tickets every day.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
like,
So originally I budgeted $10,000 a year for parking tickets.
Wow.
So like customers' bikes, right? Like they're just getting ticketed. The service.
Yeah,
service
getting ticketed. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's there's so many stories that we could go. Like, we do a separate podcast of Ducati New York stories that are unique to running.
We could just have a Marcos podcast.
Yeah,
just talk about Marcos stories.
Absolutely. There's just so. I mean, Marcos could tell a story about the marshals coming. So if you run up over $400 of parking tickets in New York City, they'll impound your vehicle, and what happens is the city marshals drive around, and so what they do is they drive around in a minivan, and they're armed, and behind them is a cadre of tow trucks. So they kind of go through, and so they're running plates, and then they get a hit, and then the tow truck rolls up, grabs the vehicle, rolls off, next one rolls in, and they just do this thing right there.
Whoa.
And so we had that, but luckily we had a good relationship with the marshals, and you could pay them cash right on the spot. I remember I had to call one client. I was like, well, there's good news and there's bad news. And it's like, okay. I said, the good news is I have your bike. The bad news is you owe me $800 in unpaid parking tickets.
Oh, no. Oh, so you had to pay on his behalf to keep his motorcycle.
Because I don't want him to take a client's bike. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it stays in our possession. So,
Man, what a crazy,
so anyway,
you had a lot of fun things you had to deal with being in Manhattan, I'm sure.
Yeah. Every dealer was always blown away, especially when they do their visit to the dealership and said, show us the union run elevator. So we had an elevator. So our repair shop is in the basement. The elevator is only accessible through a freight elevator. The freight elevator is operated by a union operator. So you ring a bell.
Oh my goodness.
So operator brings the elevator to you. You wheel your bike in, takes it down to your floor, opens the door, and you push it out and you continue. And so no elevator service on Saturday or Sunday or holidays. If you wanted to pay for the elevator, it was $155 an hour, 4-hour minimum. So you think about $620 is what it costs to run the elevator up once. if you just wanted to get, a client's bike out. So, we did it very sparingly, as you'd imagine. But again, we can talk about many stories about that dealership. And so lo and behold, I always tell the story that, owning and operating a dealership in Manhattan, each and every year it gets more difficult. And we were already at the upper echelon of sales volume. So it wasn't like there was a tremendous amount of upside for us to increase our revenue and margin. And so, when the opportunity came to sell the dealership, I did. And I said, I didn't come from money. I look at this as it was a combination of grit, timing, and relationships is how I ended up actually getting the dealership in Manhattan, because, to start something from scratch in Manhattan would be extraordinarily capital intensive. And so, when the opportunity came, I did sell the dealership, and, I thought this was going to be like the entirety of my identity would be, Ducati New York. And so it took me a couple months to kind of clean up the legal aspects and financial aspects. And then.
And what year was this when you sold it?
This is 2020. Okay. So I can tell a whole story about how we had the sale consummated 3 days before the governor shut the state down with COVID, and then the sale disappeared. And so anybody that had a dealership right before COVID, and then when COVID hit, we all thought we were all going out of business. And then it was great because everybody was home and they were still getting paid and they needed something to do, and doing motorcycles.
Did you ride? Great. Did you get to ride some of that wave? Because we sold in 2019. Oh, yeah. I missed all of the wave.
So yes, I did. Basically that was from mid-March until we actually ended up coming back to the table in August, and we did a protracted sale. We did it in 30 days. So I got the benefit of March, April, May, June, July, August is what it is. So I think it got a little better even after that, but it was really good. It went from this idea of, holy cow, we almost had it sold and now we're going bankrupt, to wow, this is crazy busy. Yeah.
Maybe I don't want to sell it.
Well, so in New York, the only service staff was deemed essential. So I had to lay the entirety of the staff off with the exception of technicians and one person in parts. So I was running the entirety of the dealership. I was, doing all the financing, all the DMV paperwork, all the sales, all the deliveries. And so I did that for about 120 days. It was, 7 days a week. And I tell the story, April 2020, I was the number one Ducati dealer in the world. So just doing it by myself. So just me. So, it was a crazy experience, but that was, let's just say it was taxing. So the opportunity to sell it was time. So
yep.
Okay. Then I went to the car business. I went over to Polestar Automotive. So if you think about 2021 and EV cars, pretty much
blowing up.
I'm like, wow. I couldn't pick a business segment in the automotive world that is not more on fire than this. And Polestar is extremely unique because it gave the appearance of being a direct-to-consumer brand, where it's a facade because it's actually a franchise dealer network, which to me is the best of both worlds. And so the opportunity to go there and see this kind of digital first company that is selling these kind of cutting edge technology EVs, it was really an amazing opportunity. And so I stepped into the network department. So I was setting on dealers. When I got there was 3. And in that first year, we grew it to 29 dealers. And so, so it's like, that's a lot to get to onboard that many dealers that quickly. And so, that was what we did. And then the head of network left, and I took over the position as the head of network. Then the head of sales left. And then I was like, I raised my hand. I said, I think I could run the sales department. So then I got the head of sales as well. So I was
kept raising your hand. You haven't learned. You gotta stop.
Stop raising my hand. So then I was head of network and head of sales. And then basically, if you think about 2024 and 5, and now Chinese built EVs with 100% import tariff, and it totally went from being the darling of the industry to being maybe not so much. So it was so that, there's a rare opportunity at the same time as when Norton started looking to bring in somebody to bring Norton back to the States.
Mhm.
And, I was apprehensive because if you're a student of history and you've seen what's happened with the various iterations of Norton in the past, I was cautious about going back to the motorcycle business.
Yeah, of course.
You think about the car business. After being in motorcycling and cars and dealership ownership, I will say that I kind of think the car business is easier in a lot of ways.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
I can
So
see
so
that.
here's an easy way to describe on the dealership side.
Mhm.
A small automotive dealership operation could be doing $100 million. And
Mhm.
you think about if they're even not the greatest of operators and they're returning 1% to the bottom line, the
Yeah.
owners put $1 million in their pocket. And now
Yep.
you think about, dealerships like yours or mine, where it's kind of utopia to think about hitting $10 million in revenue.
Mhm.
Agreed.
And again, that 1% returned you $100,000 and, basically paying you less than if you had a corporate job.
Yep.
Yep.
And could you easily hit minus 1%
Way
and,
easier.
and pay for the opportunity to show up at your dealership?
Oh, yeah.
That
That's how.
that could happen. And and so lived a couple years like that. So I
Of course.
I
Me
Same.
too.
literally know what this is like. So when you look at the car business side, again, what we do is we're selling the clients a something of want versus need. Whereas in the car business, very often that purchase is something that client needs. And
Yeah,
so
of
it's a
course.
very different dynamic when you're looking at the business. So I said, in retrospect, it looks like the car business is actually quite a bit easier than the motorcycle business. And then, we always say, slow it down to speed it up. And that's because you really need to build that rapport with the client.
Yeah.
Whereas, and whereas you look at the
Because
car
it's
business, it's
unnecessary.
just, yeah, exactly. And you look at the cars, and when it becomes a transactional one, it's like now you're just kind of getting the brass tacks and not
Mhm.
really building that rapport with the customer. And so it's more involved with what we do on two wheels.
Of course. A lot
So
more work goes into it for a lot less money.
yeah,
So then you were like, let me get back into power sports.
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to meet with. So let me just dive a little bit on this one. So
Yeah,
basically,
sure.
let's reflect on Norton. So Norton, again, founded in 1898. So like literally older than Harley Davidson, older than Triumph, like literally one of the most storied brands. The opportunity of brands that have been kind of dormant with the opportunity to be resurrected, they're far and few between. You think about
Yeah,
Triumph and what John Bloor did is very impressive with what he's done
it
with
is.
Triumph. And you can look at the iterations of Indian of what they've done and say that they've gotten to a decent stability point now as well.
Yep.
And so there's not a lot of brands that are left. There's a slew of historic brands that have been purchased out by countries outside of the U.S. or
Mhm.
Italy or those ones, and those are kind of in name only.
Yep.
Whereas you look at Norton, and here's the opportunity of a lifetime to bring this brand back. And so TVS, which most of the listeners may not know what TVS is. TVS is a large Indian company that specializes only in 2 and 3 wheelers, and
Yeah.
they are the third largest motorcycle manufacturer on the planet.
But
So yeah,
behind the Bajaj, who
but
else?
nope, behind Hero and Honda.
Okay.
Yep,
Really? They're ahead
they're
of
bigger than
Bajaj.
they're bigger than Bajaj. They're
Damn.
they're bigger than Royal Enfield. So the ones that you think about normally as perhaps you've heard of,
Yeah.
TVS is actually bigger. The one thing about is that the company is actually quite demure with touting who they are. And this is
Yeah.
one of the things is they're kind of TVS was founded in 1911. So
Wow.
this company also has been around for a longest time. So Indian companies run their fiscal year usually from April 1st to March 31st. So our fiscal year for TVS just ended in March 31st. That time period they did 5.9 million units. 5.9 million
Units.
units.
5.9
So
million
so
units.
so
Holy
yeah.
shit.
So for reference, the motorcycle industry in 2025 did 486,000 units total.
Yeah. Holy.
TVS in the month of March did 519,000.
Oh my
So
God. One brand. Not the
one brand.
entire, you're talking one brand
One
pumping
brand
out
did
that many
more
units.
in the month of March than the entirety of the U.S. two-wheeled industry did in 2025.
Oh my
So,
God, that is
so,
insane.
and what's interesting is so TVS, has a market cap about $20 billion. It's almost 8 times larger than Harley Davidson. So it's bigger than Yamaha, it's bigger than Kawasaki, it's bigger than Polaris, it's bigger than BRP. So, these players that are doing far more than just two wheelers. You think about the diversification of the companies I just said,
Yeah.
and the valuation of this company is considerably higher. And so, the compound annual growth rate of this company has been north of 25% every year for the last 5 years. So, the plodding course of where they are, they just eclipsed and became number three. If they continue on the path that they are, by 2035, TVS is going to be the largest two-wheel manufacturer on the planet. So, they purchased Norton in 2020. And so here it is, it's 2026, and we're just coming to market. It shows the level of care that this company has made and the investment. So what they did is they got the brand for a song and a dance, if you will, but then they proceeded to invest $300 million into Norton. So we built a state-of-the-art factory in Solihull, England, which is kind of like call it the Motor Valley. The Motor Valley of the
It's back
UK.
in England.
So it's
These are not being manufactured in India. These are being manufactured in England.
So yeah, we'll talk about that and manufacturing, because of course we'll have split manufacturing with what we do, and so this is in Solihull, UK, which is just south of Birmingham. So this is where your Jaguar Land Rovers are. Like Hinckley's right down the street. A lot of the F1 shops. So there is a ready-made employee base that is extremely competent and knowledgeable that we can tap into. So there's a logic and reason as to why we put our factory where it is. And so it's a state-of-the-art factory. It was built several years ago. We just converted it over a few months ago to start building the new V4. And so so the V4 Manx R and the Manx Naked Superbike will be built in our factory right there in Solihull. So I talk about British craftsmanship. It's still authentic. All our bikes are designed, engineered, and tested in the UK. So we do have bikes that will be coming to market, will be much more accessible to clients, and those bikes will be built in our state-of-the-art factory in Hosur, India. And people need to understand that for 13 years, TVS has been the contract manufacturer for BMW. So you were a BMW, the BMW dealer. So those G310s and the G310 GSs were TVS product. The new F450 GS is also a TVS product. So they have and they built they've built over 200,000 units for BMW. Wow. So this is think about the volume of what this company has built for BMW, and it's kind of a drop in the bucket for what the company has done in overall. So the reason I bring this up, and you talk about the investment of what TVS has done in the Norton, and then you'd ask yourself, well, what do they get out of it? And there's a sense of pride. You think about companies like Tata that bought Jaguar Land Rover from Ford. And what they've done in Land Rover's really had an amazing recovery and is doing extremely well here in the U.S. This is much more a buy and hold mentality. They're not flipping these. So when they buy these companies, you think about a company like TVS. It's 1911. Our global CEO Sudarshan, he's fourth generation. He's the great grandson of the founder. So these purchases are intergenerational. This isn't to flip. This is to have a sense of pride. And realistically, think about this: they get to use Norton as the sharp tip of the spear of what premium looks like. And then that has a halo effect that will then also help TVS. And so there's a real benefit to what TVS gets from Norton, and of course what we get from TVS. So, TVS, when it went into building motorcycles, they partnered with Suzuki. And when they partnership with Suzuki brought over the TQM method, the total quality management, which was, which is funny. It was invented by Deming, who was an American, and it was kind of like almost shunned by the US. And then post World War II, he was accepted with open arms in Japan, and they just totally bit into it. And you think about companies like Toyota, which kind of the gold standard in terms of this quality, they were fully embraced it. Companies like Suzuki did it, and then Suzuki brought it over to TVS, and then TVS, we had no idea that dedicated.
I didn't realize that was an American process. I thought that originated through Toyota. I thought that was like their whole thing, but it actually was US
I
pushed
mean,
over
it
there,
was
then brought back.
refined, but yeah,
Of
if you
course.
do a little bit of research on it, it's pretty amazing to think that 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 could have been us, in our automotive
Yeah,
industry.
yeah,
But
So
anyway,
so
so
that's been brought over to TVS, and that's like a
yes, yeah,
wow.
and so
wow.
it's this Kaizen principle. So this principle of constant improvement,
Yeah,
and the simple fact that everybody has a say in improving quality. So
yeah, that's yeah.
it's very interesting to see, and right from the start of the company, this has been kind of the bedrock of what TVS is.
What you're looking at right now is Deal Builder by Onyx. Now, Deal Builder is the very first application that is available on the Onyx platform. And it's all about making it easier for customers to buy from dealerships. Now, when we started that turnaround project where we came into our old dealership and tried to modernize it and give customers better experiences to keep them coming back more, this was the very first tool that we built. And the reason is we noticed that our front end profit was horrible. And by creating Deal Builder and using it for a couple months inside of this store, we immediately doubled the front end margin of our products. So all of the motorcycles selling through this dealership were making twice as much gross profit as they were before, which made the store so much healthier. So here's what we've now built commercially available for you, so you can try it out as well. So if you look at this view, you can see not only is there a personalized video you can create for every individual quote you send to every individual customer, but you also can upload any photos of those vehicles so that the customer can see your exact vehicle on your showroom floor. Scroll directly below that and you can see a timeline, basically how much longer this particular quote and these numbers are going to last. And you can change that expiration date to be whatever you want to and create that countdown for it. Scroll slightly lower and you'll see any accessories. If you wanted to add accessories to a quote, you can do it very easily on the back end of this, and the customer can turn those accessories on and off, seeing the effect that it has on their down payment and their monthly payment. Keep scrolling and you'll find the trade-in information. That's where we can have any listed information for what they may be bringing in. That includes the approximate value, the approximate payoff they have for it, and ultimately the equity that would be bringing into this deal. Scroll slightly lower and you'll see the really engaging, exciting, and interesting part, and that is the finance options tool. I think of this like the old school Foursquare, but modernized. Nobody really likes using a Foursquare. So what was the psychology behind that? Why did it work? Well, it's because in a Foursquare, the top two numbers in the Foursquare are the dealership's numbers. It's what I would give in trade. It's what the vehicle's price is. The bottom two numbers are the numbers the customer is in control of. It's their down payment and monthly payment. So it's their numbers, their money, not the dealership's money. So the Foursquare's concept was always to make sure the numbers that are being adjusted are customer money, not dealership money. And we took that same concept and applied it in a much more modern, much more transparent way that doesn't feel quite as used car salesy. So if you look down here in the finance or the payment details and down payment, you can scroll this from your 20% down all the way down to zero or all the way up. This just allows the customer to pick what their terms should be. Below that, we can see their loan term. So maybe they don't want to finance for 60 months. They'd rather go 84. And that will change the down payment and monthly payment, depending on what are those terms that are set up for them. Their credit rating, maybe they'll say, I have absolutely incredible credit. Well, I don't need to do a credit pull yet just to tell you approximately what that would be if you did, in fact, have great credit. So I scroll that all the way up to the very top, and now it'll show me exactly what that down payment and monthly payment is, all within the acceptable parameters. This means that now the customer can scroll down and not only see the specific details of their quote, but they can click right here and apply for financing, which is going to bring them right over to your website to fill in that credit application. This isn't an all-encompassing tool that connects with every other thing and does every single step of the job for you. We created one small, inexpensive plugin that just allows you to do one step of your process a lot faster and easier and smoother and in a modern, interactive way. Now, this is the first of many small interactive applications that will all begin working together in a cohesive ecosystem on that Onyx platform. So go sign up for the Onyx platform. It is absolutely free. And then sign up for this application, this Deal Builder application. This application is $30 a month for your entire store. So everyone can use the same application. Everyone can see all those quotes that are out. You can see how many times it's been viewed by the customer. You can see if they've sent it to a friend. You can see all the information they accepted when they clicked on apply for financing. So it really streamlines the process and makes it a lot easier and faster for you. And I am so certain that it's going to double the front end margin of your major unit sales that we're giving you the first 30 days absolutely free. So sign up, try it. If you hate it, if it doesn't work, if it doesn't double your margin, just cancel. There's absolutely nothing you're going to lose. Just try it out. Tell us what you think. Give us any feedback. And we'll continue to make really cool tools for dealership operators, for dealership staff, by dealership operators and staff. So enjoy this tool. Go sign up at platform.onyx.io or simply visit onyx.io and it'll direct you right over to that area and we'll get you started. Thank you so much. Enjoy it.
TVS was founded, it started as a bus line in 1911 in southern India. So I want you to think about this, is that
Make that joke.
So think about this. They started a bus line, and on this bus line, they provided the clients with breakfast on there. And he actually had a truck that was outfitted with an electromagnet on the front. And at night, that truck would go around the circuit to pick up any road irregularities to ensure that the bus didn't get any flat tires, to make sure that it was accurate and on time. And so in southern India, the saying was that you can set your watch by the TVS bus. And so the point is you think about this was over this is 115 years ago. And this is kind of what the company was founded at. And that's kind of pervasive all the way through. And so
that's incredible.
When you think about Indian companies and maybe your misconceptions as to quality and pride in work, this company is just absolutely exceptional. So I had the opportunity to go to the factory and you're brought to the founder's village. I got to see the truck with the electromagnet on it.
Oh, really?
It's not, yeah. It's not lip service. You actually get to see, the bus and the bus and the truck with the electromagnet on it. So it's really amazing. And again, they have a whole room dedicated to TQM education for everybody in the factory. And we, as members of Norton, we're expected to go through that same level of training. So it's unique in that, yes, we have an amazingly strong company that has manufacturing, but with a strong onus on quality and, of course, financial backing. And then we're bringing it to actually being bikes that are designed, built, and tested in the UK. So it's pretty incredible. And so, I'll jog a little bit on this one and talk about kind of the executive team as well, because you'd imagine that this team is extremely good at building quality, low-priced product for a market in large quantity, but obviously they didn't have the premium aspect of it. So, I think about, you bring in somebody like myself to run the operation. My pretty much existence has been kind of in the premium two-wheel world, doing that. But my boss, his name is Richard Arnold. He was the former CEO of Manchester United. He was there for 20 years. And the reason I bring that up is because, Manchester's probably not in the top 100 cities in the world, but pretty much I've gone around the entire country and everybody knows who Man U is. And I think, he's really responsible in bringing it to this kind of global awareness level. And so, you think about, So you think about what you're going to do for a brand like this. I mean, many of the dealers are like, yeah, but what are you guys going to do to get people to consider Norton? Well, this is why we brought in people that are experts at elevating a brand from, I won't say anonymity, but certainly from a lower profile to having global recognition. And so, I interviewed with Richard and I was like, that's like, wow, that's pretty incredible. And then you meet Sudarshan, who's our global CEO, and he is the sharpest executive I've ever come across. And he has a double degree from Wharton. So he's been educated here in the US. So he understands the US market. He understands premium. And he's been working in TVS for over 15 years. He's 36 years old. And so, he's already got 15 years of experience doing various things from all around the company itself. So I interviewed with Sudarshan, and that was just an impressive individual.
Wow, really cool.
Yeah. And you look at our chief technology officer, his name is Brian Gillen. It's amazing. Like, I know Brian for 30 years. He's an American. He's actually from my hometown. He's from Buffalo. We're both from Buffalo.
Really?
And so he was the head of engineering at MV. Right? It's just completely coincidental. Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
His dad actually owned the Ducati dealer in Buffalo. And so like I was his rep
Full
years
circle,
ago.
man.
So yeah, it's crazy. I knew his
Fury.
dad, I knew his
Yeah.
mom, and so he was the head of engineering at MV for 15 years. And he's
Wow.
been our chief technology officer at Norton for almost 3 years. And we've got various other people at this upper level that have manufacturing capability. Sir Ralph Speth, who is on the board of directors, he was 10 years the global CEO of Jaguar Land Rover, from 2010 to 2020, when that really that real transformation happened. So, the idea is that
The
they're
hell of a
smart
team.
enough to know they're smart enough to know that if they don't have the expertise, they can hire it. And
Yeah.
I'll just jog a little bit on this one as well. So even on the
Mhm.
engineering capability, the company recently purchased a Bologna-based engineering firm called Engines Engineering, and they've done
Okay.
various teams for other manufacturers, Moto 2 teams, Moto 3 teams, MotoGP teams, rapid prototyping, everything else. So they're right there in Bologna, the home of Ducati, the home of Lamborghini,
Got
the
it.
home of Ferrari,
Yeah.
and sure enough, instead of contracting with companies like this, we just bought it. So we own that
Oh
company.
man.
So
Whoa,
That's
that is
so
awesome.
we have
wild.
yeah. So we have almost
So is
60
that some
engineers
foreshadowing?
operating. So
Yeah.
so we have almost 60 engineers operating there. And so if you look at the company itself, Norton currently employs about 500 people dedicated just to Norton. Almost half of that is engineering and design. So, I'm kind of all over the place, but the bikes that we showed at EICMA in November, we showed 4 bikes: the Manx R, the
Mhm.
Manx, the Atlas, and the Atlas GT. And so I say,
Yeah.
like, you don't bring in 200 plus engineers and designers to show 4 bikes and be like, okay,
Yeah.
that's it. So,
We
the
saw the
foreshadowing
name. I
is
mean,
that,
they are
yeah,
Unbelievable.
gorgeous motorcycles. They're really,
yeah,
I mean, I
especially
think
seeing
that
that Manx in person.
I hope I'm not getting there too soon. I mean, obviously everybody wants to know when we're gonna start seeing Nortons on the road in
Yeah.
U.S.
yeah,
soil.
yep,
Is
yep.
it
So
soon?
I can jog on that one too, and talk about. So right now in Spain, in Sevilla is the global press launch for Manx R. So that's
So
happening.
people are
That's
riding it
happening
right now.
right now. There's
That's
there's
amazing.
literally people. So if you go over Instagram or you look on the web, you'll see various articles trickling out. We have the
Yeah.
majority of the content is embargoed until May 20th, and
Yeah.
so that's when you'll start to see rider reviews of our
Yeah,
bike
of course.
there. And then, the UK is our home market. We've had an existing dealer network there for years. We never really stopped
Yeah.
selling there. And so we go live in that market in June, and then the EU's next, then the Indian markets after that, and then we will go live in the US. So right now we're targeting November of this year to go live in the US. So
Yeah. Nice.
So
that's
how's
yeah.
our
So that's
how's
what
our
that's what we
dealer
do.
network shaping up?
Yeah. Yeah. How's the U.S. dealer network? Who are you picking? How are you deciding them? That kind of stuff.
Yep, yep. So, it's interesting being out of the motorcycle business I was out for 5 years. And so it was interesting coming back with kind of a fresh set of eyes and maybe
Hmm.
having a bit of a lens of what happens in the car business. So I will tell you, we have not appointed a single dealer. And let me explain why that is. And so for the last 6 months, myself and the team have visited over 100 dealerships across the entirety of the United States. And we've sat down and given I won't call it a pitch because I'm not pitching dealers. I'm more explaining
Hmm.
as to what our plans are for the US market. And we've done that with over 80 dealerships. So initially, obviously, I've got deep roots with the European motorcycle industry. And I think it's pretty
Yeah.
fair to say, if you look at our motorcycle industry, it kind of falls into two camps, either experiential or transactional.
Agreed.
And so the experiential side definitely over indexes with the European manufacturers. So your
Hmm.
BMW, your Ducati, your Triumph, to a lower extent, even your Aprilias, your MVs. So we have spent a lot of time visiting with dealers of that nature. And again, I want to make sure that we really over index on the ability to give the experience to the customer. And
Yeah.
so, we've really concentrated on meeting with those dealers. And so
Yeah.
again, before we appointed any dealer, it was important that, one, do we actually understand the landscape of the US? Have we gathered the correct feedback from the dealers? And I think as much as we were talking about Norton, we were also listening to the dealers. And I think it's important to understand that we need to be students of the industry. We need to understand not only what clients want, but what dealers need. I was a dealer, so I understand how tough this business is from a margin standpoint. And so I would say that what we have been able to do is, and I won't say it here on this podcast, but I think that we can do a very detailed breakout of each of the manufacturers of what both their strengths and weaknesses are. And I think that, one of the things I think was interesting was that before we even started this process to go forward to speak to dealers, I was able to go through and develop the operating standards and margin structure, corporate identity for the global organization. And it's the first time I've seen a company that's kind of European based and have an American go through and be influential on all of these processes and procedures in advance.
That's huge.
So that was a unique opportunity to be able to be right there and do that. And so understanding what the dealer's pain points are, and understanding, my experience as a dealer, and understanding, like, we were shaping our policies and plans to make sure that we were delighting the customer, the clients, and that we were also creating an environment where the dealers will be profitable enough to allow them to give that delight. And I think what we've observed is that there is a constant erosion of the margin for the motorcycles. And it's really hard to, you guys just went into this, right? You resurrected a dealer, and probably the hardest thing is hiring staff. I know for me, especially in Manhattan, is that hiring talent was extremely hard. Holding on to that talent was even more difficult. And so, if we want to give the clients a good level of service, it starts at the top, right? We need to think about the client and how they should be treated. That's a critical element in it. But then we need to be able to both indoctrinate and pay our staff to give that same level of service. So, definitely looking at the margin structure and making sure that we're looking at what the opportunity is for the dealer was critical. Yeah. And then the other aspects of it is the buying aspect of it. And I think it's important to understand that we also need to meet clients where they are. And I had an interesting experience after leaving the car business, where I was given a company car. I'm back now to have to buy a car. And I will tell you, it was a painful experience. I couldn't believe it. As savvy as it was, knowing how a business works, I still had a painful experience. So I think that the thing that we need to do as a manufacturer is we need to reduce friction for the client and make it easier for them to buy. And the thing is like the tech is there. The industry just hasn't embraced it. And so, you think about a company like TVS and we have like 600 people in IT. Like, we have more people in that department than most OEMs have in their entirety. So, and I share this, you go to India and all of us are now, we're ordering food or we're ordering through Amazon, and we're used to getting things the next day. Well, in India, you can get it in 10 minutes. Like, they have micro warehouses positioned across the country that literally you can get a staple item in 10 minutes. So you have to think about there is a complete different world out there that we just need to embrace to bring this over to go through, because the pain point of the purchase. Again, I used to tell clients, I was like, listen, here's your ownership experience. We're right here. This is the purchase. This is everything else.
Agreed.
That's where we need to spend our time, is here. This part should be the small part. And a matter of fact, right? Like the DMV transaction, the tax transaction, the purchase, it is what it is. That is kind of how it has to work. So let's just make it frictionless for the client. So then we can talk about the things that we actually want to do. Like, what are you going to do with your bike? How can we outfit the bike to make it yours? What can we make sure that it's pain free your ownership existence? So I think
what does the
when I think about
look like? I love that you guys start with that.
So when I think about what we want to do, like, that's the part that we want to bring, both the technology aspect of it and as I said, the pervasiveness of the client satisfaction is something that's to our core with TVS, and then brought over to Norton. And so, I think that's the part where we need to make sure that we kind of continue through.
Yeah. I mean, it's so good to hear as a brand. I mean, I think people are recognizing more and more about how important the ownership experience is and the value. Having been a dealer operator, like run a store, that yes, there's money in the metal. We make, some margin, some good margin on the front end, but you can make 3 to 4 times that if you maintain the relationship through the ownership cycle, and they keep coming back to you for all the other things, and they participate in the events you put on, and they're showing up and building more life cycle value. And that person buys their second and their third and their fourth from you. And so if you don't do a good job in that 3.5 years of ownership, then you lose out on the profitability in that 3 or 4 years, and you lose out on all the other opportunities because they're going to spend their Mototainment dollars on some other thing because it turns out it wasn't actually that much fun owning this vehicle. So now that you've seen every aspect of how this industry operates, and you're now, it sounds like in this incredible role, being able to almost from like absolute manufacturing all the way down to distribution and dealer level. How do you start to impact the experience, and how does Norton change the ownership experience at a dealer level? Because I'm assuming you're not talking flagship Norton stores unless you are, but
no.
How do you affect it like that?
I just want to reflect on one thing. What we find here in vehicle distribution when you come to the States is that you have a binary decision. You're going to be direct to consumer or you're going to be franchise dealer. And there was no hesitation that we were going with the franchise dealer model. And the reason being is that, as a manufacturer, we tend to concentrate on that sale that's in front of us, whereas the dealer thinks about the lifetime relationship of the client. So routinely you could sell multiple bikes, even multi generations to a client, and dealers get that. So I think it's important for us to make sure that we understand that is the plan, is that we want to use franchise dealers. Yeah. Your question about what do we do to ensure that basically the client satisfaction is the most absolute critical element. It's the dealers that we set on. I mean, that's literally where it starts. Is picking the right dealers for us to partner with. So there's that aspect of it. The other aspect is that we do need to embrace current technology. So you're a dealer, you've had multiple franchises. We have a thing called the Norton Hub, and the Norton Hub is an all singing, all dancing dealer interaction, and it has everything. You can order your parts to it, you can register your bikes, you can do your warranty claims, you can file for technical assistance, you can go through lead management. So it's literally a single sign-on, completely mobile friendly. And the idea is that the dealer is using the tool so that we're getting this information. It's not to be Big Brother, it's to make sure that we are in touch with the client. The dealer is actually our face to the client, but we need to be the aggregator of what we're seeing and what we're doing to ensure that if we need to make changes on our end, that we are using the data to shape our decisions. And so I think that's a really critical element. You think about, if you think about in TVS, they have 5,000 dealers in India. They actually have about 2,000 core dealers, and they even have sub dealers. The average dealer of those 2,000 dealers sells 2,500 units. So, they have their own DMS system. So they're literally like a McDonald's franchise, if you will, where you're buying your straws and your sugar packets and your napkins from them. You're buying everything. You buy your tires from them, you buy your oil. So it's quite a bit interesting. But so that's our parent company, and that's how they operate. So there's a level of intimacy that they're able to maintain with the dealer and the client. And so I think that there's some tech components of that, but again, the core element of getting it right is getting the right partners.
This seems like such a different landscape for them when they stepped into bringing Norton to the United States through you. I mean, are they surprised by the disjointed operations of dealerships here if they're used to this other kind of holistic approach?
Yes. So you think about if you're dealing with the team that pretty much only deals with the Indian market. Yes. The executive management team, they get it. They are worldly. They're not just colored by the Indian market. And in actuality, the way our operations are here in the U.S. is actually not that dissimilar from Europe and the U.K.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, one of our partners with Onyx is Mark McAllister, who is actually setting up NPA in Europe right now. So he is in dealerships in Europe all the time now. And he's like, man, really similar. I mean, all these dealerships in Germany, they run exactly like this store. So yeah, I mean, I can see the similarities between Europe and the Americas, or at least North America. It's just very interesting that India has it so much more, like so much of a better, well-oiled machine running these dealership operations.
Well, I'd imagine because it's probably more similar to like automotive here.
Totally.
As far as motorcycles in India, I mean, they have the market.
You're pumping out 5 million units a year. That's a pretty wild.
I mean, the Indian market, I mean, it closed it with 21 million units is what it just did. So, for reference, the U.S. auto industry is around 16 million. So, your point about being similar to the automotive industry, it's spot on, because it's at the same magnitude, not the same dollars, but the same magnitude. And you have to think about, when you're moving units, because it's kind of that at that point you're looking at it as units. It's the transactional load of what you need to do that. So it's quite similar to automotive.
Can't even wrap my head around how you move 5 million units a year out of factories and transport those. And I mean, just the logistics of that is wild.
I mean, it's incredible. So, TVS, we'll have our own parts warehouses here in the US, and we're using TVS Supply Chain Solutions. So they have their own logistics company as well. So you got to think about it, a company like this owns the full supply chain as well. And so, we know how to move that level of units. See, the factory in Hosur, just to give reference, has a New York City level size parking garage on the premises. That parking garage is filled and discharged 3 times a day.
Holy shit.
I mean, you think about how much space.
Yeah.
It is a 3 or 4 story parking structure. And you think about how closely cycles fit.
Yeah.
And then you think about that being filled and discharged 3 times daily. So,
wow.
I mean, the company has the capacity to build 1,000 units an hour.
Oh my God. How many units is that a second? I mean,
well, we say the company builds a motorcycle every 19 seconds, every minute, every hour, every day, 365 days a year.
It's just running 24/7? God damn, that is
no. But point is the volume is that. I mean, they do have multiple shifts though.
God, that is pretty incredible. All right, well, incredible brand picking that up. Okay, so talking more about just dealerships and setting them up. You and I had talked previously about kind of what's happening in dealerships now and what things are changing and shifting. I think you would explain to me the idea of major unit count in the United States not necessarily dropping or changing very much, but the displacement of those shifting pretty dramatically. So, I mean, that clearly affects the margin or the profitability of a dealership right now. What's your take on where the industry is now? Is this part of the cyclical thing that our industry really is? Are we at an inflection point where we have to make a change as dealers? Kind of looking at your little crystal ball a little bit, and what do you think dealerships of the future are going to have to be if we keep moving in this direction?
It's such a hard question. It really is.
Yeah. I asked you because I figured you would know.
If I could tell the future, I don't know if I'd actually be here right now. So,
well, you keep raising your hand though, so just keep raising your hand.
I guess so. I guess so. What does the dealer of the future look like? I think that the industry itself is going to get dragged kicking and screaming into the latest technology. When I sit with dealers, I state that if you look at where currently tech is, the car business is about 10 years behind that. The motorcycle business is about 10 years behind that. So we're decades behind. So the dealer of the future, I think that is really where we need to go through and over-index on the technology of the purchase. Again, it shouldn't be hard to buy a motorcycle. If I can one click off Amazon, I'm not saying I want to do one click on there, nor do I want to sell on Amazon, but I do want to make it easier for the client and easier for the dealer to do the transaction. I think think Sam has his own podcast, and he's near and dear to me. And you talk about what they did is like, the average salesperson could 20 years ago sold 15 bikes a month. Here we are with all this tech, and they sell 15 bikes a month. It's like
Yeah.
what? How is this possible?
What did we do?
And I'm not saying that
I'm
not saying we necessarily need to sell, that they need to sell more bikes each, but it's where they spend the time. So instead of going to chasing the person to get their license and get their stipulations lifted off their finance contract, and making sure that their name matches their license exactly so they can get their insurance policy. Like this is crazy that at this point that we're still chasing and we're going through there, and it's painful for the customer. I don't want to have to go through and like scan a picture of my license in to get this, and go and get you 3 pay stubs. And so the technology now just needs to be used so that now we're changing the conversations that we're having with the client. And I think that is really where the industry needs to go, and on the dealer side, so that we can attract people that are now talking about what's so great about motorcycles instead of talking about what's so lousy about the transaction of buying one.
We can hire people that are enthusiasts, not just really good admins. Because you know what? Really good admins can be replaced by modern tools, by AI, by those things.
100%. But keep this in mind when you run a dealership and you have somebody that's not a good admin, and just how painful that becomes to clean up. It's a legitimate issue. So until the tech comes to make it kind of foolproof.
I mean, there's tech. I mean, you and I both know there's tech on the horizon, or tech that's already out there to solve some of the service or some of the sales problems. It's like speeding up the process, making it faster. Actually, what's funny, you sent me a podcast recently with a guy from Tesla. What was it?
Oh yeah, that was a great clip that I saw. This guy that worked for Tesla and working with Elon Musk, and they were sitting down talking, and Elon was like, order a pizza from Domino's and see how many clicks it takes. And it was like 10 clicks or maybe less than that. Anyway, he said right now for a customer to buy a car from Tesla, it takes 60 clicks, get it down to 10. And so it's like, that's what we did.
That concept of like, okay, well, if you have to make that dramatic of a drop, you have to change a lot of things about the process and streamline a lot more of it. But what type of experience does that create for the customer when they purchase? And man, if buying a Norton can be accelerated by the tools capable of buying that experience, and now that customer goes, man, buying a Norton is a better experience than buying anything else. How do you make sure that owning a Norton is also better than anything else? That answer still needs to be done. And I'll just say we're working on with some really fun stuff right now. We're building an agentic operating system for.
Yeah, it's more than fun.
Yeah, it's
monumental.
It is. We'll geek out on this with you for a long time, but basically an agentic operating system essentially allows the service employees to interact with an agent that's building the tools and the repair orders and all that stuff for them, and then pushing that into the DMS and all the other systems automatically. So suddenly, I mean, really what it's trying to do, and same idea with sales, is we're trying to ensure that the employees have more face time with the customer and less screen time. And if you can reduce the screen time, increase the face time, then the experience gets better, and we carry it all through. And so, I mean, I think if dealers aren't considering that technology is the only way to solve this problem, and I hate to say it as the only way, because our dealership downstairs, you probably could feel the same way. When we sold TTR&O in 2019, we had 16 employees running the store. And that is how we were able to have the right amount of support, could give the right experiences, and we had a small net at the end. Now, today, that same exact store has 8 employees. They sell a hell of a lot less service. Fixed operations is not like it used to be before. But the net is the same because the payroll is significantly reduced. Right. So the only way to really, I'm seeing that across the entire industry.
So honestly, the only thing that suffers is the customer experience.
Customer ownership 100%. Experience just goes away. So the repurchases start dropping off. The enthusiast life cycle value, the customer life cycle starts dropping. You make money on the front, but you're making less money on the front because you're selling smaller displacement bikes, not bigger displacement bikes, but you're making money on the front, and then you're losing the customer because they're never coming back. They're spending their Mototainment dollars somewhere else. And so now this idea is like, if we wanted to just turn this place around right now with the tools at our disposal, I wouldn't even say tools at our disposal currently, but like what's been expected over the last 3 decades, you would have to hire more people. And the only way to hire more people, to get them trained on all the crazy technology and tools and all the legacy systems that we have, and be enthusiastic, is going to cost you so much. It's going to be such a large investment. You're never going to get that back out. So the only solution that's really going to be able to bridge the gap without requiring this huge level of investment is using technology to get that across the finish line. So there's just a very interesting model to that. But I'm going to bring it back to, you're the OEM guy now. And this is going to be a hard question. You, as Norton, can make the Norton sale easier. Absolutely. You can push a software solution into a store. You can provide your own software solution. You can do any of that stuff. But there's no flagship Norton stores. You're going to put a Norton in a Ducati, Triumph, BMW dealership. And if they don't have the tools for the other 4 lines, they're not going to use the tool that's only utilized for one of their 5 products that they sell. So how do you ensure that? I mean, you made a very good point. You pick the right dealer from the beginning. Totally true. I completely agree with that. That is the only way to solve the problem right now. But still, if the service advisor that's delivering that great experience, he's delivering a great experience because he's a badass or she's a badass. That's what it takes right now. If that person quits, you start over again. And then how do you make sure that Norton stands out at that point? So is there some solution? Or
I don't know if that's the role of the manufacturer. And we talk about this all the,
I agree. And maybe the better thing to say is, we've worked with lots of manufacturers who want to give a better experience. No, there's no manufacturer out there that says, I don't want the ownership experience to be good. They all want that to happen. But some of the problem is, I feel, is that manufacturers want to improve their brand presence.
They want to silo it off.
They want to silo the capability of getting better experiences only to Norton, or only, I'm not picking on you guys, but only to, let's say, Ducati.
It seems like they forego improving their customer experience because they don't want to lift the other brands at the same time.
Yeah, completely agree.
And it is very frustrating.
It is. There have been many conversations of, well, that's going to help the other brands, so we don't want to do that. And how are you guys looking at this problem that needs to be solved for an industry?
I understand that whole point, and I look at this industry as like, there's really no secrets. Like, there's nobody's got some secret sauce. So don't think that by raising the way I look at this is that what I want to do is, and you're right, there's not going to be standalone Norton stores at this moment. I will tell you, I've got delusions of grandeur that we will grow this brand and it will be the largest European motorcycle manufacturer in the US. So, we do have strong aspirations, and our parent company has already proven that they can do this type of stuff. And we've made the investments in not only the people and the factory and the products, so that I think that we can deliver that and become a very, very large contributor to the dealer, even to the point where in some of our larger urban areas that there is a standalone store. But again, I want that to be because the dealer owner has chosen that, wow, Norton is easy to do business with. They provide me with ample margin and the tools to make me successful. So I think, that's the important part. But, to the point of, I do realize that for Norton to be successful within the dealership network, we're going to need to garner share of mind within the dealership. And that needs to be pervasive, right? So that needs to be pervasive from the service advisor to the brand ambassador to, honestly, the bookkeeper. I will tell
Everyone
you, if
has
you have
to drink the Kool-Aid.
I mean, you have a hard to read monthly statement, and the bookkeeper sours. That bookkeeper goes to the dealer principal and says, this brand stinks because I can't make heads or tails of theirs. Like, you'd be surprised how much, you need to think holistically about this. And I think, the one thing about Norton coming to market is that we're even thinking about those things. We even
I
we
love
have
that.
Norton packing tape already designed and
Yeah.
ready to go. It's like, all the little details that cause a new manufacturer to kind of run off the rails. We're trying
Mhm.
to make sure that we think about that. So, in our
Same time.
infancy, what we need to do is do those things well. We need to do what all the other OEMs are doing as
Mhm.
well, and then we need to incrementally improve. And I think that, this is where we will over-index on the tech part. We've already been talking about partners of how do we allow for the online purchase. And again, we're not looking to cut the dealer out. It still goes through a transacts through a dealer. And I said, this is exactly what we learned at Polestar.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
there's literally a model that allows the dealer to operate as they normally do and allow the customer to have the convenience. And so you marry the two, and that is the kind of the secret sauce. Then we need to do the same thing with improving the tech, so we have a customer app that's all integrated in so that the customer can go through. We have,
Oh, that's
what
great.
our bikes have OTA, over the air updates. So you can go through and push this. And so we can keep this aware. And so, there's the things that where we can have with our app, we can have the interaction with the customer to make sure that they're being serviced, and then it's seamless to the dealership so that they can give a
Mhm.
better level of service on that. So I think that, we as a
Incredible.
company will be heading out that part on the tech side to make sure that it's easier for both the dealer and the client, to make sure that the ownership satisfaction of the motorcycle is all they should be doing is out riding their motorcycle. What they shouldn't be doing is worrying about, do we get parts?
Mhm.
How do I get my bike to the dealership? Is my warranty covered? We're launching with a 3 or 36,000 mile warranty.
Yeah.
And so,
Wow.
we're beating the
I
best or
love that.
matching the best at coming out. And it's just showing that the commitment that we have to the clients, the dealers, and the quality of the product.
Wow. One thing that, I mean, what really sticks with me, and I appreciate you saying, especially knowing you have sat in the dealer seat, if we can make the employees of the dealerships, if we make the team members of the dealerships jobs more enjoyable and easier and more pleasant and delightful, that will translate to the customers. That's like the
Yeah.
best way to get delight to the customers, is to
I,
make it
yeah.
delightful to interact with you as a
Yeah.
brand and your product.
I,
Yeah.
I didn't,
And
I'll admit, I didn't particularly like selling motorcycles when we were negotiating on price. I
mhm.
don't like that transaction.
Yeah.
Me as a consumer, I kind of look at it as if I like something and I've justified the value proposition in my mind, I will buy it for whatever
Yeah.
the asking price is,
Agreed.
because I don't particularly enjoy that part. What I really enjoyed was making the motorcycle or their gear purchase the more enjoyable part of what they were going to do. I mean, building custom bikes, we did a ton at the
Yeah.
store, and it was my favorite thing. It wasn't so much the profitable part, but it was the part of being able to
The
create
enjoyable part.
this. Yeah, that is exactly. So I much more want to talk about what they're going to do with the motorcycle as opposed to how they're going to buy the motorcycle. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
going back to the negotiation, I think that the millennials and this upcoming generation, convenience and experience far outweighs
Price point.
haggling and price, because they don't do
Yep.
that in any other area of their life.
Mhm.
They don't haggle with Amazon. They
yeah,
don't haggle with buying an iPhone. They don't haggle with anything else. And I think that that really is
yeah,
going away.
Yeah. This idea of a
yeah.
salesperson
No,
who
I agree.
befriends you and then tries to get the most amount of money out of you is not, that's not a long-term play for how this industry continues to survive, because it's going
Yeah,
away in auto. I mean, you had a horrible auto buying experience. I bought my last car on Carvana. I loved it. I knew everything
yep,
was so incredibly transparent. I knew exactly what my monthly was going to be, and it was delivered to me in 2 days. It was such an
yep,
incredible experience. And I'm like, I will never visit a car dealership again, like, ever.
exactly.
And so if that buys loyalty to Carvana, but you know what sucked right after I got that new car? Is I needed to bring it for service, and then bringing it to a dealership with a Carvana plate frame on it,
Yep.
they didn't give a shit
That's what
about.
we
So it's
talk
like
about.
that disconnect of, yes, the buying experience was awesome, the ownership experience has been lackluster.
Yeah, so
Right.
that's what we're working on at Onyx. I mean,
Yeah.
the space is getting crowded with tech companies coming in and working on a solution to make the sale as frictionless as possible, which is fantastic. Industry absolutely needs that. But then what happens when they come in for that first service and they go back to the Stone Ages of this lackluster experience? So that's what we're focusing on with Onyx, and it's incredible. It really is.
Yeah, the newest stuff, man. We'll show you offline some of the stuff.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see that, to make sure, because I agree with you. This is where we need to move, is that to that client's experience after they've purchased. So so I think with the current tech, we can make it with less friction to buy. Okay, that's one aspect of it. Now our bikes are out there in the market. Now we need repeat customers. Now as we go through, the idea is that we will have bikes that will allow a customer or client to enter into motorcycling on a Norton. And the whole idea is that we want to grow them within our brand. And that means we need to do everything else on the other side of the purchase to keep them in.
So right now you've got 4 bikes you've come out with. You're gonna have a whole lineup from small displacement starter all the way up, or what can you tell us?
I can't exactly give you a peek under the curtain as to what's coming, but as I said, it's a bold statement, but we intend to be. We have an 8-year plan for the U.S. So we're not just thinking about what are we doing when it start to sell in November. We're thinking about, okay, how does this brand morph and become a bona fide player in the two-wheel world? So that only happens by
when you say an 8-year plan, though, are you talking like, okay, we have product planned out for the next 8 years, like here's the stuff that's being launched, or just generally how the brand is going to be moving?
So we don't have 8 years out, obviously, but do we have several years out? I mean, nobody has product cycle planned out 8 years in advance. Especially now. I don't know, man. Especially now because
the window. Million units.
True, but the life cycle is much more compressed than it was. I mean, I always tell the story. Yeah. I think Tamburini, the guy who penned the 916, it took him. It was 10 years in the making to get there. So now that's not the case anymore. Things are much more compressed. So no, I don't have an 8-year product plan out there, but there's a product plan that allows us to be everywhere where the industry is, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's a
but also true to who we are. So you can look at certain segments in this industry, and we won't be there. But for the ones that are authentic for Norton, you can anticipate that we will be a contributor to that classification.
The segments that are very adjacent to Norton, you can see products that will look like or be competitive to those.
Yeah, and I do want to make one note about the design, and I think that the other thing is we need to be very cohesive on this. Is that when you look at the current generation of Nortons, they at least they look like they've all come off the same pen, which is very unique in the two-wheel world. Like you could look at a Tesla, and I'll be honest, I can't tell the difference between a Model 3 and a Model Y, but I know it's a Tesla, right? Yep. And very similar with at Porsche. And so I think that there is a design language that will be that will be identifiable for the new Norton as well. And so that gives a sense of pride of ownership too. So if you're entering on the Norton brand, that there is a lineage to our real premium product with the Manx R. And I think that there's a benefit to making sure that there is a cohesive design language as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, seeing the Manx at AIM, it is a beautiful. I mean, it's even more beautiful in person. Yeah. The photos look great, but like in person, it is stunning. But I'm also excited. I love small displacement bikes. I don't love them for the profitability it generates for the dealership, but I like making small bikes go fast more than I like make fast bikes go real slow sitting in traffic. And so, my wife had a BMW G310 that I rode all the time. I really enjoyed. It was a nice little scoot around town kind of thing. You could wring its neck and it's real fun. And so to know that's a TVS, and to know that in TVS's back pocket, they've got a premium thing they're going to start bringing out. So already a dependable workhorse of an engine and a platform, but to make it with the fit and finish of some of the things I saw at AIM is going to be just game changing. I'm really excited to see more of these products and start riding them.
Yeah. So when I talk about it, I talk about Norton as a premium brand, but that doesn't mean that everything is at a premium price point. So we are the
Yeah.
premium price point at where we'll be appearing in the market. And so, the point is that we can be premium while being accessible. And
Yeah.
and I
Right.
just want to make sure that, the plan is that we are a premium manufacturer, but we are also an accessible manufacturer because, I look at this industry as 3% of the population. There's about 10 million licensed motorcyclists in this country out of the 340 million. So
Mhm.
just being a licensed motorcyclist is rarefied air. So we need to be
Yeah.
doing everything in our power to make sure that motorcycling is inclusive.
Yep.
And so I think that by having product offering as to where the customers are or where they can enter is a critical element for our success as much as it is selling really aspirational high-end super bikes.
Yeah. Oh man, this is incredibly exciting. I am really, I can't wait to throw a leg over one of these bikes. I'm hoping it's not going to be that much longer. We're like 6 more months. You're saying we're going to start showing up.
Yep.
I start traveling around and riding Nortons. But
We'll be
Steve,
taking a trip to New Jersey.
yes, New Jersey,
There you go.
not New York. Yeah, I got to remember I got that right. I don't want to be showing up to the wrong factory. But Steve, thank you so much for being on the show, for showing up and talking about all this stuff. This has been really fun, and it's been
Awesome.
really nice catching back up with you again. So,
Great. Well, I very much appreciate your guys' time.
of course, man, thanks for being on it, and we'll see you again soon.
Sounds good.